You're tuned in to Career Currency with Kareem Perez, a podcast for people who are interested in unlocking their potential and increasing their professional value. Here's your host, Kareem Perez.
Okay, so welcome, Abel Osario. Happy to have you on the show, brother. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's a little cold and rainy here, but otherwise, all good. How about yourself?
Nice. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here. Yeah, it's sunny and beautiful. So yeah, can't complain.
Yeah, I can't complain. Okay, well, it's nice to meet you, and I really love your story and your mission. So, Abel, for those, oh my gosh, for those who don't know you, can you please give us an idea of, kind of where you started off, how it started off versus how it's going now?
Yeah, sure. I worked about 10 years in technology in 9 to 5. I had probably 3, 4 jobs. Then I decided that I wanted to do something else, kind of build my own career. So I did about 2 years of freelancing where I learned, sales, marketing, things like that. And after that, I started my own business, which was kind of scaling my freelance business to a bigger business. So I did that for about 7, 8 years. And now I'm running different ventures, different businesses, and also helping people building their own businesses as well. So yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
overall of my story.
Yeah. So basically, you started off as a freelancer, you started corporate, then you
Yeah.
went freelance, and you kind of scaled that into um, company itself. So
Yeah.
can you talk about some of the challenges that you faced during your, entrepreneurial journey, something that maybe a lot of people don't know about?
So I would say the first challenge that you face when you start a business, and I just want to do a clarification here. So I have always liked a little bit more the service-based businesses. They are kind of faster to put together, and quicker if they are making money or not, right? So most of my business were kind of service based. So the first challenge is that you're broke and you need money, and you don't get any money until you figure that part out. So I guess the biggest challenge for me was to be able to test different ideas and to cope with the feeling of failure, right? Because you test something, you say, okay, I'm going to set up this, beautiful company. I set up this beautiful website. My company has a very cool vision, mission, and values, and I'm going to kick it out of the park. And
Yeah.
then you don't, and it doesn't feel good. So being able to learn from that and to really, you know, be okay with failing, I think that was one of my biggest challenges.
Yeah, that's such an important lesson to learn is how to deal with
Yeah.
failure and overcome it. Was there ever a time where you considered, kind of giving up and just like, hey, this is maybe not for me. Maybe I should just go
Yeah.
back to 9 to 5, or maybe I should try something different.
Many times.
Okay.
Yeah. Many times. So, you know, when I started, I didn't really believe that I could lead a team of people, build companies, build different businesses, and become the person that I dreamed to become. So, from being a child, I wanted to become that kind of person that travels the world, has a big house, few cars, like living life.
Right.
Uh, but I didn't actually believe that I could do it. So, um, you know, those difficult moments where things didn't go as planned, I was facing my kind of internal fears, my doubts, that kind of, insecurity inside saying, this is not for you. You cannot do it. What are you doing? Go back to 9 to 5. Like,
Right.
well, and yeah, I have had many of those situations where maybe I don't necessarily say, I'll go back to getting a job. But I still have those moments where I tend to say, okay, let's go back to what I know it works instead of keeping trying new things and exploring new ideas.
Right.
But yeah, at the end of the day, I think one of the best workouts we entrepreneurs do is this, failing all the time and learning to fail,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
And what other like sacrifices did you make that taught you about, discipline and purpose and just other aspects of the entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, that's a great question. In terms of sacrifices, I think, um, you know, um, thinking about what you're building and thinking long term changes everything because sometimes you have to sacrifice much. You have to sacrifice time, which is, in my opinion, the most precious resource we have. I have a beautiful family. I have a beautiful wife and a son. So sometimes you have to say, hey, guys, I need to work during the weekend, all right? Or I need to take this week off or these 2 weeks off to go to this location or this place and, do some sales or whatever. So sacrifices are all, it's something that happens all the time. But if you have kind of your long-term vision very clear and you clarify that on a regular basis, you can cope with that. But yeah, sacrifices are all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, such a good point. And like you mentioned, just sticking to the long-term vision and keeping that in mind.
Yeah.
The sacrifices is important. And I know for you, it's also a matter of traveling to different countries, like you mentioned, for
Mhm.
business, but also
Yeah.
um, I believe you're planning to move or you're moving. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, can you talk about that? Like how
Sure.
living or traveling to different places and even moving to different places has shaped the way you kind of lead and build as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. No, that's a great point there. So when I built my first business, I was living in Argentina and I was doing business with North America mainly, and mainly the US. So I had to travel, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a year, which meant many weeks within the year I wasn't at home. I was somewhere else, uh, and trying to find clients or to develop the business. And then in 2023, my family and I decided to move abroad, and we decided to move to Vancouver, to Canada. So that was quite a journey. Uh, so something, you know, this was a very profound experience, and I have met many entrepreneurs in Vancouver that relocated from other countries. And that's such a difficult decision, and it's a big challenge. So it isn't only, moving to a different country or to a different location. You have to, first of all, English is not my first language. So you have to speak all day long in a different language, and you have to be able to communicate your ideas and even your personality. I always say, I'm funnier in Spanish. I'm cooler in Spanish, right? Because yeah, you cannot be the same person, and you have to learn to be that different person in a different culture with a different language. You know, then you have to adapt everything you do to this new place. In my case, I have a child, so I have to find a school. So it's a long process to really get yourself comfortable in this new place. But then on top of that, you have all the uncertainty of your business. If you are an entrepreneur, your business is 90, 90% uncertain, right? So you don't know anything. You know very little things. And actually the work of an owner of a business is to work on turning those uncertainties into learnings, into data you can use to grow your business. But here you are with all this, the anxiety, all the stress, all this, emotions changing all the time of, being in a different country, making new friends, missing family, missing your food, your place, your friends. And on top of that, you throw all the entrepreneurship, and it's a perfect recipe for burnout, chaos, and many other things. I want to say that after a few years, I learned to really uh, overcome that and use that in my favor. So you asked how that changed the way I, work as a business owner, entrepreneur. So I think I now have a few tools to cope with things like uncertainty, like extreme uncertainty, burnout. Burnout is real, is dangerous, and you have to work on, getting out of there quickly. So I have a few tools, and moreover, I have an understanding of how that feels. There's a saying that says experiences can't be shared, right? You have to live through those experiences to feel how it feels. And now having had those experiences make me more what's the word? Empathic with the other person,
Empathetic.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I can really understand other people that maybe moving to different countries, maybe not speaking their first language. And yeah, I think it opens your mind, opens other possibilities, and makes you, a stronger and tougher entrepreneur. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a really good one. Okay, and talk about like the creativity side too, because
Mhm.
running a business, there's a lot of, X's and O's and numbers that you have to make sure
Yeah.
you're building a sustainable business, but you also want to
Yeah.
be innovative and creative. So how do you, in your experience, how do you balance the two? Coming up with new ideas, being innovative, but also, you know, being sustainable and running a real business.
Yeah. So I will say this to people, the number one priority is to make money, especially in a service-based company. And that's why I like those companies better. Those are simpler. If you make money, the company is, doing good. Can do better, yes, but if you make money, that's the number one KPI. You don't have users or activity or any of those metrics that really don't tell a clear story.
Right.
Here you have a very clear story. Do you make money? Do you have healthy profits? Yes, good, no problem. So to me, it's all about looking at those metrics and doing incremental changes. And usually, those incremental changes are very little, very few during the year. So in my more mature businesses, I want to do maybe one or two major changes a year. I don't want to keep changing the model all the time, because every change needs some time to adapt and some time to implement, to execute. For early stage businesses, you do have to iterate more and more quickly to really learn, where you want your business to go. But and it's more creativity. But
Mm.
yeah, I think it's all a balance between executing on something to get real data, get real data first, and then once you have the data, being able to iterate quickly, to actionate on that data quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, that's interesting what you said. So essentially, the creativity side is less important um, in the longer term once you've established your primary KPI of making
Yeah.
the revenue. But in the beginning, you need to try a little bit more different things to get to that stage where you're getting consistent
Yeah.
recurring.
Yeah. Execution matters way more. I think people think that entrepreneurship is about ideas. It
Yeah.
is not. It's about discipline and execution. So you may have a very, bad idea, but if you are, the more stubborn executioner, you'll get it. You'll make money out of that. The world is too big, and now we have global competition, so you can build your business anywhere in the world. So the market is big enough for you to find people that may buy into your bad idea, right? So it isn't about ideas anymore.
Right, right.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for someone, entrepreneurs starting out in terms of like action items, what they should focus on,
Yeah.
that context in terms of, there's a lot you could do in terms of like marketing and branding and
Hmm.
networking and things like that. But there's a lot of things that entrepreneurs kind of overlook in terms of the systems and
Right.
revenue generators and how to get repeat business.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and what are some of the key things to focus on. Because part of it as an entrepreneur is that, like you said, you have so much to do. It's more
Yeah.
about choosing to do the right thing versus, you can still be doing things, but it might not be actually leading to growth and sustainability.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great question. Actually, it's a great segue to talk about the program I'm giving. So I don't want to really market that program here, but just talking about what I'm doing now.
Mm.
I'm, teaching or helping people setting up their businesses. And the very first thing we do is to figure out their true value. So, when people set up companies, they set up a cool logo, name, vision, mission, values, the culture, like a lot of things. Whereas we don't really take that time to understand what our mission or vision or values are as professionals, right? So the very first thing we do in my program is to understand the value that you bring to the market as a professional, as an entrepreneur, as a employee, job seeker, whatever. But the market doesn't pay for skills anymore. Uh, you know, traditionally we would go to school, graduate, get a nice diploma, and go to the market. And some company would say, "Oh, that's a good diploma. Let's come join our company." And that is not happening anymore. And it isn't ChatGPT fault. It's a matter of global competition and differentiation. Now we have to be different and we have to have a very good value proposition as companies have. So the exercise is okay, so what do you bring to the table? That's a cool diploma. What else? Right? So just like to put in an example, in my case, I'm from Latin America, developing country. I can speak Spanish. I can speak a little bit of English. I had experience of building different business. I was broke many times. I'm a musician. I play guitar. I know how living in Canada feels. I know how unknowing snow can be. you have a lot of experiences, personal traits, skills. When you are, in your 20s, 30s, even, in your 40s, you collect a lot of value. You are a very unique person, right? So the very first thing entrepreneurs, I think, have to do is, hey, how can you be more aware of that? And how can you turn that into, a cash flow generating business?
Mhm.
And then, the other two priorities are packaging that in a way that people understand what that is. So messaging is important, and sales.
Right.
Then, once you get to, I don't know, 10K MRR, okay, you can start with, a cool website, a cool social media stuff. I think that's later down the road, but we undervalue phones and phone calls. So you can have an idea and pick up your phone, call a few people, and figure out if that works or not.
Right.
But it's easier to really avoid that. It's easier to avoid one-on-one conversations and set up, websites, taking 3 months of design, setting up social media, spending a year writing to no one. So in my opinion, sorry for the long answer, but
Good.
it is about finding your value in the market, really understanding what makes you unique and what value you can provide to the market, then packaging that in a way that people understand, right? Because then you have a lot of things. So how can you pack that up and communicate easily to people? And then third step is test with, a few people, see if that idea gets some traction, start making money. So traction in this case means revenue. Do you do make revenue? All right. So then you can, you know, do whatever feels good for you. There is a kind of, some other guidelines for after that, but I
Right.
think that's 80% of the job.
Yeah, yeah, that's so interesting because yeah, so many entrepreneurs focused on some of those other aspects that you mentioned, like the marketing, the branding, and kind of looking good,
Yeah.
showing like a high level brand versus the actual execution. And actually, something that came to mind as you were speaking was part of having that monthly recurring revenue and those clients is you can get the
Hmm.
feedback, you can refine your actual offering,
Exactly.
and then now when you do market it, you have the system and the results in place to help more and more people. Because that's
Yeah.
the thing too, if you got 20 new leads or 50 new customers, could you handle them right now?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, so really, really good. Thank you for that. I wanted to switch a little bit into the freelancer world,
Sure.
and just talk about like how do you feel about the current freelancing landscape, and do you feel like freelancers should have like kind of multi-skilled
Hmm.
offerings, or should they kind of stick to one area? And even
Yeah.
touch on the fact that some people are freelancing while they're working full time
Hmm.
versus doing it on their own.
Yeah. So answering the first question, so we have seen the freelancing business switching to specific solutions. So, for example, platforms like Upwork, you can now hire people to do very specific things like designing a logo or building a website. So I think that's not a trend. That's a change. That's something that's a transition, right? So the freelancing business, in my opinion, is transitioning from, being a software engineer, a freelancer software engineer, to I am a software engineer that solve these problems,
Right.
right? So coming back to what I was saying before, I think right now, whereas you are a freelancer, an entrepreneur, or just someone working in 9 to 5, you really have to understand what value you can provide to the market. So yeah, another way to say it is, in the Kanban methodology, you have push versus pull, right? So in my point of view, we have been trying to push, or we have been pushing professionals into the market. So again, you would go to school, get a software engineering degree, and then push your skills into the market. And someone would be looking for your skills and hire you and tell you what you have to do. So with global competition, AI, all this kind of noise around, that isn't really happening anymore. So, and that's why you see people saying, freelancing is not for me, or I chose freelance to have kind of a side income. I cannot really, freelance full time because there is no enough opportunities, or there are way too many software engineers out there. So another way to see it is, okay, so the market may not be working the same anymore, right? And in my opinion, it doesn't, and it won't anymore. So the way it now works is more on the pull side. So if you want to be really good for the market and make money out of the market as a freelancer or entrepreneur or job seeker, you have to understand or you have to first understand what you can bring to the market, what value you can provide, but then trying to find a problem into the market that you can solve with those unique skills, or that unique combination of skills, personal traits, and experiences. And then you pull a problem from the market and say, okay, this is a problem that I can solve in a very unique way because of the uniqueness of myself. And then you offer that specific solution. So I see the freelancing business turning into more problem solution kind of based, the market in general.
Right.
And to me, answering the second question, freelancing is kind of a step towards building autonomy and your own business. So to me, I see it as the employee stage. That's step one. Get skills, get paid to learn, use someone else's time to develop your skills. Freelancing is kind of the self-employed stage where you learn how it feels to live from a client income versus a job income. You learn about sales, you learn how it feels, how autonomy feels. We think autonomy is cool. Autonomy is very hard. When you don't have, the safety of a salary,
Right.
let's talk about that. And then the third step is the owner stage, where you have already built the skills to build more businesses. So you can now think on developing systems so that you can start working more on the business instead of in the business, right? And you can replicate that and build multiple businesses if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Really, really good answer. Um, what's your take on AI? You kind of mentioned earlier it's
Yeah.
AI that's gonna disrupting the industry. But when it comes to, starting a business, building your career, a lot of people now
Yeah.
are turning to AI to, again, help them with their business plan, help them with their strategy, help them with their idea. So what are your thoughts and how are you leveraging AI and what are some of the trends you're seeing?
Yeah. I think AI is great. I think technology is great. But I think with AI, we saw it clearer. The speed to new technology, it isn't the same as the speed to adoption of those technologies. So, we need to adapt. We humans, and as a civilization, we need to adapt to new technology. And I think we are just learning what AI really is, and we are just learning to adapt to AI. I think it's a long way until we can actually leverage AI fully. In my case, what I learned is that we don't have to learn prompt engineering. We don't have to prompt AI. We have to learn how to prompt AI to prompt us.
Okay.
So it's because otherwise you would be asking AI to think and to develop things that you should be developing, right? So you can ask AI to expand on something you create because AI cannot really create things, right? So it's been trained on massive amounts of data, so it can replicate patterns and ideas from that data. But what makes humans special is that we can create new ideas. So, for example, in the exercise I do with my training program about finding your uniqueness, that's something you have to do, right? You have to think.
Yeah.
AI doesn't know about your childhood or how you overcame a special situation that now makes you stronger. AI doesn't know that, but you can prompt or you can write a nice prompt to ask AI to ask you about different situations, and then compile that list in a nicely put list or whatever. But I think we at least in my case, I've been learning that the the magic of AI is to be able to extract information from me and ideas from me, right? Rather than me trying to do what most people are doing. If I, ask AI about, hey, you put together a business idea, most likely that business idea is already repeated because that business idea is from the data it's been trained on. So, yeah.
Nice. And then yeah, I really like what you said there. And then what skills do you think are gonna matter the most for freelancers in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, so the ability of marketing themselves. I
Yeah.
think marketing is number one. Most people say I'm not really a marketing person. I'm not extrovert. I don't really know about sales. So yeah, I think we have to cut with that BS and really learn that, if you want to be successful in any kind of business, and freelancing is a business. And even getting a job now, it's a
Right,
business. It
yeah.
requires like a very polished LinkedIn profile. I mean, it's super hard. So marketing, sales, you cannot avoid that. And in marketing, whenever a marketer has to market a product, they have to take the product, take it home, and study the product. So it can now say, okay, this product is very put well together, is wide, whatever, right? So we have to do the same with us. We have to study us deeply as product because then you have to learn how to sell that product and do it. So I think I started as a freelancer in 2016, so right after it started, and it was all about skills. I was a Ruby on Rails developer.
Sure,
So it was all about being better and better as a Ruby on Rails developer, right? It was crazy. There were people that were like, masters in whatever they did, and they have a lot of clients and a lot of cash. If you go to the market now, you are gonna see masters in any technology that are broke, and people that are not very good that are doing great. So what's the difference? It's all about marketing. The market is too crowded. The market is too big now. We have global competition, which is something that matters more than AI. People are crazy about AI, but what about global competition?
right.
That changed the game. So it's all about how to how you differentiate yourself from the competition, how you uh, put together a good messaging about what you do, about your value proposition, and then the exercise of finding new opportunities. Outreach, one-on-one, networking, building relationships. So yeah, I think those skills are going to matter more and more. And whether we like it or not, whether we are extroverts or introverts or shy or not, we have to learn about that and yeah, and use them.
Yeah, great answer. Last question before we move on to hot takes. Uh,
Ah,
just community and mentorship. So how do you see these components evolving along with entrepreneurs? I know you said you have a program. It's a
yeah.
group-based community program?
Um,
Or is it individual?
yeah, kind of. So it's we actually I'm just launching this program and it's going to be for 12 people only, so I can, give them my full attention and really learn what works, what doesn't. Um, but in general terms, I think community now plays a more emotional role. I have been around different communities, especially in Vancouver. Vancouver is a beautiful city full of communities everywhere about whatever you want. There
Yeah,
is a community. But as I said, it's all about the emotional support that we need to cope with the craziness of not the craziness, but all is happening in the market. Very few people understand what's happening in the market. I don't know if I really fully understand what's happening in the market. So we need emotional support to cope with that. And most communities are playing that role right now.
yeah,
Uh, how I see it for the future, I think, uh, technology is it's going to keep improving and keep doing more things better than humans. So the whole world is going to change, faster than we think. So I think communities are going to be more important and play a bigger role in that emotional support.
yeah.
Yeah,
Agree more. Couldn't agree more. Thanks, Abel.
yeah, sure.
Okay, so switching to hot takes, a little bit of, learning about you. So yeah, I'm actually really interested for this part. Talk to me about your favorite food. You're well traveled, you're
Yeah,
from South America. I know you guys got some really good food out there.
yes.
Yeah, what's your favorite dish? What's your go-to dish?
Yeah, I love to travel and explore different cuisines. I love, you know, Indian food. I love tacos and burritos, but nothing beats a good asado in Argentina.
Nice, nice.
Good meat, just salt and grilled in the fire. Yeah, I can't love it anymore.
Yeah, I can see you
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
Okay, favorite place to travel.
The mountains. Yeah, with snow, quiet, silence. Yeah.
Okay, so is that Vancouver or maybe even
Uh, yeah, I have been in many places with mountains and quiet places, but in BC, I've been to the Caribou region.
okay?
So it's north to Vancouver, maybe 7 hour drive. Um, it's, I went in the winter, so it's all white, super silence, no houses in 50 kilometers. That's kind of my place, my go-to place for vacation.
Nice, man, nice. Um,
Yeah.
favorite app?
Uh, Google Calendar.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
organize.
use it for everything.
Do you use the new booking feature too, where people can schedule meetings with you?
I yeah, I tried it, but the problem is that I run multiple ventures
Right.
and I have multiple domains, like email domains. So I cannot really give you my, I don't know, Nubel domain if we are doing business around Latitude Bridge Ventures, right? So it doesn't really work for me, so I use cal.com for scheduling.
Oh,
But for any other features, yeah, I use that.
nice.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Recommended book or podcast? Sorry, recommended
Oh, okay.
book.
Book. All right. So, Million Dollar Weekend by Carl Kagan, I think, if I am not wrong. $1 million weekend.
What did you say it again?
$1 million weekend.
A $1 million weekend. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think the author is Carl Kagan. It's all about how to test an idea in 48 hours.
Nice.
And what it hit me about the book is overcoming the fear of rejection. So there is an exercise in the book. So you have to go to get a coffee and ask for a 2-cent discount.
Okay.
Just for the exercise of the cashiers looking at you like, no. And, going through that feeling of, people looking at you and the rejection of, not getting what you want. It's a great book anyway.
Interesting. Interesting. That sounds great. I gotta check that out.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. Word of advice.
Uh, yeah, just do it.
Okay.
If I did it, anyone can. So I really believe that. So, whatever you want to do, it's all about doing it. It's all about waking up every day and, putting up the work and just exposing yourself a little. And whenever you fail, you can take a day off, watch TV, cry, and wake up the next day, with the energy to try it again. Yeah, I think it's all about doing it. Yeah, execution is everything.
Awesome. Abel,
Yeah.
amazing conversation. I'm already thinking of some part 2 questions. So we'll love to have you back. And if you're ever in Toronto, make sure you definitely come by the
Yeah.
studio. But yeah, I'm excited to be connected with you and learn more about your journey as things progress with your new company. And if there's
Nice.
any final words for people listening, or where can they find you? How can they connect with you? Just let them know before we break.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, people can find me on LinkedIn, and I think I have done a good job there organizing all of my ventures and my access to my training program as well. So yeah, and feel free to reach out. So yeah, thank you, Kareem, for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation. Has been fun.
Thanks, Abel. Thanks for coming through. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.